Hi, this is John Linneball from John Linneball Tutoring, and this is APUS History Video 58, Post-Civil War Reconstruction. How did it affect society? Introduction. The Civil War and Reconstruction immediately following the war had an extremely deep effect on U.S. society. The war profoundly affected the relationship between the federal government and the states. The lesson of the Civil War was that the United States was indivisible since states could not secede. Most importantly, the Civil War ended slavery in the United States, at least officially, or as George Carlin put it, not so that you'd really notice. Anyway, the Civil War and Reconstruction started debates over the definition of citizenship, including if and how it belonged to women and African Americans. Constitutional amendments redefined citizenship. Immediately following the Civil War, 3 amendments to the U.S. Constitution were ratified. The Reconstruction-era amendments were the 13th Amendment, which outlawed slavery in 1865, so that came out the same year the war ended, and the 1868 14th Amendment, so that came out in 1868, a little bit later, which mandated due process of law and equal protection for African Americans. And finally, the 15th Amendment, which was ratified in 1870, which prohibited racial discrimination in voting. All 3 of these amendments were meant to protect the legal rights of African Americans, including, perhaps especially, newly freed slaves. The 13th Amendment banned slavery. Slavery was essentially destroyed by the Civil War. See the Emancipation Proclamation and the Union Army's defeat of the Confederacy. The 13th Amendment freed the remaining slaves, but its most important purpose was to proclaim that slavery was illegal in the United States. 14th Amendment, the linchpin of civil rights. The 14th Amendment, passed in 1868, states that everyone born in the U.S. is a U.S. citizen. This legal idea, known as jus soli, or jus soli, jus soli, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Anyway, it means the right of the soil when you translate it literally, or birthright citizenship was much different from the idea of citizenship believed in many European countries, and still is to this day. While birthright citizenship is common in countries in North and South America, it is relatively rare in other parts of the world. This map shows the countries where jus soli applies. See the Wikipedia article on birth tourism, the practice of people traveling so their babies can be born in countries where the babies can gain citizenship. So these blue countries all have the jus soli, soli, anyway. And the gray ones do not have birthright citizenship. So that is a new legal doctrine that really didn't exist so much before the 14th Amendment was passed, and it's very helpful here. The 14th Amendment, the linchpin of civil rights, continued. The 14th Amendment declares that states cannot abridge, that is, diminish or eliminate, the privileges and immunities of any or all citizens without the due process of law. So, the 14th Amendment also stated that citizens could not be denied life, liberty, or property without due process of law. You can see philosopher John Locke's language and in the Declaration of Independence, which basically cribbed from John Locke's ideas. See the Declaration of Independence. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The reason that the Declaration of Independence used life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness rather than life, liberty, or property, or life, liberty, and property, is that many people who would have to be convinced to fight for independence in the Revolutionary War didn't own any real property being land, real estate. So saying life, liberty, and property might not have motivated those people as much as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But I digress. Let's move on. The 14th Amendment was strongly opposed by Southern senators who were forced to approve it before being allowed to represent their states in Congress. The amendment ran contrary to custom and also contrary to the 1857 Dred Scott Supreme Court decision. You can see APUSH video number 53 at 26 minutes and 29 seconds. And the reason that that ran across the Dred Scott and ran against the custom is that the 14th Amendment gave African Americans the same legal rights as whites or anyone else. Despite guaranteeing citizenship, the 14th Amendment did not guarantee voting rights to African Americans. So they had all the legal rights, but voting rights weren't specifically included, so they did something about it. The 14th Amendment, again, the linchpin of civil rights. The 14th Amendment did, however, state that for every male citizen who was not allowed to vote, that is disenfranchised, the state would have to deduct one person from its population for representation purposes. Remember, that's how they determine how many Congress people get to be in a state, is the population of the state. So this was intended to put very strong pressure on states to allow every eligible citizen to vote. The 14th Amendment was the first use of male or female anywhere in the Constitution. The southern states, however, did not succumb to the pressure. Consequently, the Reconstruction era federal and state authorities drafted and ratified the 15th Amendment. The 14th Amendment also banned traitors/rebels from serving in government positions. So you should notice that Section 3 of the 14th Amendment states, "No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of the president and vice president or hold any office or office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or any executive or judicial officer of any state, to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, or given aid or comfort to enemies thereof." But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability. So they could actually bring people back from the Confederate government or from the Confederate Army by voting by 2/3 of each house that certain people should be allowed to be government officials, etc., even though they were involved in, well, basically traitorous activity, on insurrection, rebellion, and so on. This also applies now. This is still the law, so January 6th, these guys, hope none of them are government officials, because they're not going to be able to unless they get a special permission from Congress, and Congress would actually have to vote 2/3 of each house to let them into it. So just a little word to the wise: do not take up arms against the government if you want to work for the government. Don't go and trespass on government property, etc. This kind of thing gets you in trouble. The 15th Amendment. African American men were given the vote by the 15th Amendment, which was ratified in 1870. The 15th Amendment prohibits the disenfranchisement of any person based on race, color, or previous condition of servitude. Women of any race, color, etc. still couldn't vote. Women did not gain the vote until 1920, and that's when the 19th Amendment was ratified. The guarantee of African American voting rights was part of the radical Republican agenda I'll try that again. The radical Republican agenda for Reconstruction. Remember, the Republicans back then were basically what the Democrats are like today, and the Democrats of yesteryear are basically what the Republicans are like today, in case you're confused. Radical Republicans, I've never heard of them. Well, that's why. It's the parties just basically switched places. So I've only heard radical Republican used as people making a joke about this. Oh, I'm a radical Republican. I've seen guys by that name online. Anyway, the Native Americans still couldn't vote until the Snyder Act of 1924 was passed. And you can see this URL here, www.loc.gov, Library of Congress, I believe. Classroom materials, right to vote, I will include this in the notes below. So let's move on. Women's movement, the women's movement, and civil rights in Reconstruction. So we have people protesting for votes for women, a pin. A lot of times these women were called suffragettes. I didn't make it up. Basically, women's suffrage meant being able to vote. So they were called suffragettes. That's kind of a demeaning term by today's standards, but anyway, that's what they were called. So while some supporters of the women's movement were cheered on by the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, others were disappointed by the reforms being limited to ensuring that only men could vote. Obviously, that'd be pretty disheartening to the feminists or the suffragettes or whatever you want to call them of that era, because they're like, hey, wait a minute, we were helping you get your rights. Why aren't you helping us? What's going on here? 15th Amendment, debates on sex/gender. The 15th Amendment was hotly debated by women's rights supporters. People were already disheartened by the insertion of the word male into the 14th Amendment because before that, there really was no provision of the Constitution that explicitly denied the vote to women. So, with male inserted into the amendment, the right to vote was directly linked to being male and, by implication, directly denied to women. Feminists Elizabeth, that's an easy name to pronounce, okay. Feminists Elizabeth Cady Stanton, okay, there you go, and Susan B. Anthony refused to support the 15th Amendment for this reason. Other feminists, such as Lucy Stone and her husband, Henry Blackwell, supported the amendment on the grounds that the Republicans needed their support to make Reconstruction work and equality could be obtained at the state level. So we've all heard the phrase, justice delayed is justice denied. So I could see that being a bit of a problem in the previous slide, where you're dealing with women saying, hey, wait a minute, we want our votes now. We don't want to have to wait. We don't have to try to go through state laws. We should get it now. So feminists who followed the ideas of Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony obviously disagreed with those who supported Lucy Stone and Henry Blackwell for the reasons I just discussed. I mean, Stone and Blackwell were like, oh, that's okay. Hey, look, it's better to get half a loaf than none at all. And Stanton and Anthony were like, no, this is crap. We're not going to do this. So this schism caused Stanton and Anthony to start the American Woman Suffrage Association. That is correct. It's woman suffrage. It's not women's suffrage. Don't ask me why. AWSA and Stone and Blackwell with others started the National Woman Suffrage Association. National Woman Suffrage Association. So it's kind of like the American League and the National League. Anyway, and both of those were founded in 1862. The rift was eventually healed, leading to the merger of the two organizations into the National American Woman Suffrage Association, or NAWSA, in 1890. So they just took the National and American and just put them together. There you go. And watching it. Did you find this video useful? Please like it and subscribe to my channel. Neither action costs you anything. You'll be alerted about my new videos. Why? It's really simple. YouTube doesn't let me share any ad revenue unless I have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours, that's 240,000 minutes, of view time in a year. While many people are watching these videos, I don't have 4,000 hours of watch time in the last year. I do, however, have 1,000 subscribers, actually more than 1,000 subscribers at this time. So thank you so much to everyone who actually helped me out by subscribing. Ad money will help me make more of these videos. And speaking of ad money, if you've seen an ad during this video or my other videos, please know that I did not get any of the ad money, and I won't until I have the subscribers and view time that YouTube demands. For the same reasons, you are not only welcome but encouraged to share links to this video, put it in playlists, etc. I gladly read and respond to constructive criticism or suggestions for new videos that are also constructive. I reserve the right to delete comments such as troll posts or spam for obvious reasons. Nobody likes trollers and spam. You can hire me for tutoring. We can do it online through Zoom or some other similar internet platform, or we can meet in person. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, so if you're around there, it's pretty easy for me to come see you. I do travel to other cities sometimes, so you can always contact me and ask me if I'm going to be in your city, and that's another way that I might be able to meet with you in person. Thanks for watching, and my contact information follows. You can contact me on Facebook, facebook.com/Linneball Tutoring, all one word. Instagram, it's instagram.com/John.Linneball.tutoring. And the phone number, this is my cell phone, 415-623-4251. You can always call me or leave a text message. Email, you can always email me at john@johnlinneball.com. Website, you can reach me at johnlinneball.com or johnlinneballtutoring.com. They take you to the same website. And you can also find me at testpreparation.locals.com and at lbry.tv at John Linneball Tutoring. That's a nifty little site, lbry.tv. My actual postal mail address is John Linneball Tutoring at 1859 Powell Street, number 109, San Francisco, California, 94133. And finally, please note, this video is not a substitute for your classes, etc., or the text or anything else. This video is based on Barron's AP U.S. History Review Book, the 4th edition. Some of them it's the 5th edition. Anyway, or any other sources used in the video description and my general knowledge of U.S. history. While these videos should all help you do well on the AP U.S. History exam, I can't be responsible for what your teacher thinks is important and asks you about on his or her own tests, homework, etc. Please, please, please read your class texts, and please pay attention to what your teacher says in class, because that will help you do well on the tests and homework, etc., that are not the actual AP US History exam. All right, have a nice day.